Is staff ready to go?
Yes, we're good to go.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to this 6 p.m. start of the Capitola City Council for this Thursday, June the 23rd, 2022. And before we begin, I'd like to ask our clerk to make an announcement.
Thank you, Mayor Story. In accordance with California Senate Bill 361, this meeting is not physically open to the public. Council and staff are meeting via Zoom, and there are several ways for the public to watch and participate. Information on how to join the meeting using Zoom or a landline or mobile phone, along with how to submit public comment during the meeting tonight, is available on our website, cityofcapitola.org, and on the published meeting agenda. The public can also live stream the meeting on our website and on YouTube. As always, the meeting is cablecast live on Charter Communications Cable TV Channel 8 and is being recorded to be rebroadcast on the following Wednesday at 8 a.m. and on Saturday following the first rebroadcast at 1 p.m. on Charter Channel 71 and Comcast Channel 25. Our technician this evening is Walter, and he's also joined by, I believe, Eric. So thank you both for being here. Thank you, Mayor Story.
Thank you, Chloe. And I also want to extend my thanks to Walter and Eric for being our technicians this evening. And next, let's go to our roll call.
Yes. Councilmember Bertrand.
I'm here.
Councilmember Brooks.
Here.
Councilmember Brown.
Present.
Vice Mayor Kaiser.
Here.
Mayor Story.
Here.
Thank you.
So next, I'd like to ask Councilmember Brooks if she'd lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Sure. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Do we have any additions or deletions to the agenda?
Staff has no changes this evening.
Okay, we'll now move on to item 3, which is presentations. And this evening, we have a presentation to recognize July 2022 as Parks and Recreation Make Life Better Month. You know, it's my pleasure to make this proclamation, and this is a fitting time since you know, summer activity is upon us, and our junior guards are busy on the beach, and our parks, and particularly Jade Street Park, is full with players, softball players and basketball players, and as well as Monterey Park. So to make this proclamation, I want to recognize that that the Parks and Recreational Department, or for the City of Capitola, creates experiences for youth sports and enrichment activities, teen centers and programs, which you know, help vitalize our community. And our City of Capitola Recreation Department is dedicated to promoting physical, emotional, and mental health and wellness for all those programs designed around fitness, creativity, play, and activity. You know, our parks are an important and integral part of our community by enriching our connections with one another and with nature. The Parks and Recreational Department fosters social cohesiveness in our community by providing spaces for the residents and visitors to come together in a peaceful way and to promote you know, sportsmanship and social networks. The Parks and Recs Department also supports human development by fostering and providing lifelong learning activities that foster social, intellectual, emotional, and physical growth for people of all ages and abilities. Our particular Capitola Rec Department offers an after-school rec club for students who attend Main Street, Soquel Elementary, and New Brighton. And those are from the first grade through middle school are able to enroll in that program. The Parks and Rec strengthens our community identity, providing facilities such as our J Street Park Community Center. They support recreational activities, which make our lives better in many ways. And I also want to acknowledge that the recreational department has 51 instructors and staff who offer nearly 100 different classes and other programming, including the Camp Capitola, Junior Guards, all the classes and events and rentals, and sports equipment. The California Parks and Recs has released a statewide public awareness campaign called Parks Make Life Better, registered trademark, and to inform citizens of the many benefits of utilizing parks facilities and programs. And therefore, I, Sam Story, as the mayor of the city of Capitola, here now do proclaim July 2022 as Parks and Recreational Make Life Better Month, and encourage all citizens of the city of Capitola to join me in this observance. Thank you. Is Nikki, did you want to say a few words on behalf of our Parks Department? Hi.
Yes, thank you, Mayor Story.
You're very welcome. My honor to do that.
Yes, thank you very much. Good evening, Council. So thank you very much for the proclamation. As a park and recreation professional, I'm excited to share with you the activities that residents can expect. So we have on July 1st, we're going to have a community kickball. So anybody is welcome. Bring family, all ages, to Jade Street Park at 5 p.m. And we will organize just a fun recreational kickball game. We also are offering on July 6th a family swim for junior guard families or any other families that are interested in coming and swimming around the wharf. We're going to have that as a supported activity. And I believe that the Team Tola Parents Club is also going to help organize a few activities on the beach before that as well. On July 15th, we will have a food truck event in Monterey Park. Those operate from 4:30 to 7:30. So please come out and enjoy that if you are available. And then there are lots of residents that might be interested in classes, but they're not quite ready to commit to series. And so for the third week of July, which is July 17th through the 23rd, we're offering Try It classes. So these are one-time classes that if you're interested in just trying it out, maybe you've seen it in the catalog and you want to learn a little bit more about it without the full commitment, this is that opportunity. So please check out our website and our catalog for any Try It classes. And then finally, we are in part of the county-wide partnership with other Parks and Recreation agencies to help host the Family Fun Day event. And this July, it is happening on Saturday, July 30th at Ramsey's Park in Watsonville. Like I said, this is a county-wide collective, so you'll find all Parks and Recreation agencies at this event. Everybody is welcome. Please go out, find your park, find any of our other county or other cities in our county also have lots of events that are available for community members. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Nikki. It sounds like a lot of fun activities planned for this summer. I particularly like the community kickball idea. I don't think I played kickball since I was in grade school. Maybe I can get the council members to form a team if that doesn't violate the Brown Act in some way. And the triad classes, that's a wonderful idea to get people out who maybe aren't ready to commit, but just want to check things out and see how it feels. So thank you for all that. I just wanted to check, do other council members have any comments? Yeah, Council Member Bertrand.
Well, I remember my favorite sport in grammar school was dodgeball. So we had a lot of fun doing that. Of course, I always got hit a lot, but I don't know why they always threw the ball at me. But anyway, maybe softball and dodgeball next year.
Okay, any other comments or questions from council members? Seeing none, I'm going to now move on to item 4, which is about any additional materials for this evening's meeting.
Yes, Mayor Story, one additional material was received regarding item 8C, the potential second home tax.
Okay, all right, thank you for that. Next is oral communications. This is an opportunity for members of the public to address the council on items that are not on tonight's agenda or items that are on tonight's consent agenda. If you would like to make a public comment, you can raise your hand in Zoom or dial *9. The moderator will give you up to 3 minutes to speak. You can also send an email to public-comments@ci.capitola.ca.us. And I see one hand up, Larry. Maybe we could.
Yeah, Mayor Starr, we have someone named Phil Stott.
Okay. Can you hear me, Mr. Stott?
Yes.
Oh.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Yeah, very well. Go ahead.
Okay. I live on Diamond Street, and I've been taking exception to the parking situation. We've had I've lost some parking spaces here. So, oh my goodness, the screen changed. Well, I'll keep talking anyway. Initially in January, the parking enforcement came through and issued tickets saying they couldn't park the way they have been for the last 25, 30 years or so, which is nose in, which works well in the areas that were designed for it. I thought that this at the time was maybe like a fraternity prank pulled on the parking cadets, who, by the way, were pretty good. They were polite and firm and so forth. We're told to go out and issue silly tickets, but no, it turned, and then I thought maybe they're trying to raise money. No, that's not it. Finally, it took a long time after talking to Chief Daly and talking to Jacques that there's a problem over on Ruby Court. Ruby Court had problems with nose-in parking, and they really did have a problem because it's narrower. The Ruby Court is 32 feet wide, and the part that's the street, and then the cul-de-sac area is only 71 feet. Also, they have problems with people coming over, employees coming over from businesses on 41st Avenue, encouraged by their employers to park there instead of in the parking lot in the business in order to leave more room for the customers. So Ruby Court is jammed. And anybody who comes into Ruby Court, who lives there, parks there, they have to try to negotiate the cul-de-sac at the end. There's just no way around it. And if there's some of these big behemoth vehicles parked up in there with their rear end sticking out, it's hard. I can see why they would do that. Okay, no nose-in parking for Ruby Court. No problem with that. However, when I talked to Chief Daly, he thought that if they had restricted nose-in parking for Ruby Court, then they would also have to restrict it for Diamond Street. Diamond Street is a completely different street. It's not a cul-de-sac. It comes on through, it winds on out. And these cut out areas are so big that down in the southern end, you could park 2 or 3 dump trucks in there and it nose in and it still would not affect anything on the street. So what I'd like to point out is that what happens in Ruby Court stays in Ruby Court. It shouldn't be affecting Diamond Street. So what I have done, I was told by both Jacques, you suggested that I get a group going and talk to the HOA. Sarah Ryan suggested I talk to the HOA. I tried 3 times, as well as trying to communicate with them, just like we're communicating now. And also, Chief Daly thought I should form some kind of a thing. Well, I'm not a real sociable person, and the idea of going around and trying to organize people just seemed like a bad idea. But I did it. So far, I've got a petition going, 30 signatures to gain back our parking spaces on Diamond Street. And there's a couple of gentlemen down at the other end of the street who are also circulating the petitions. So we're going to get this done. We're going to have this happening. Now, what I would ask of you is to simply.
Yeah, Mr. Stott, I just, I'm going to give you 1 more minute, okay, to sum up, since your 3 minutes are up. So.
Okay, I can do this in 1 minute. What I'm asking is just reconsideration of this restriction on Diamond Street, because there's a problem in Ruby Court. Ruby Court is not our problem. It's Ruby Court's problem. They have my sympathy. And so I intend to mail you a package, everybody on the council, Chief Daly, Sarah Ryan, the engineer, that has satellite photos of all of these things concerned with the measurements of the streets, a couple of pages of commentary, and then copies of all of the petition signers. And I hope they'll get there in a few days, and I please hope that you consider them. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Mr. Stotts, and particularly for bringing that issue to our attention and for your advocacy. I can assure you when we receive your packet of materials that each of the council members will review it and seriously consider it. So thank you for that. Are there any other attendees that would like to speak on public comment?
Mayor Story, we have Rory Walsh.
Yes, hello. Thank you for hearing my comment. I just wanted to note that I'm really missing the decorations along Capitola Median and wondering when that's going to be taken up by the council in terms of bringing them back. I think during this time of pandemic and the last couple of years, those decorations for all the different events all year long brought joy to people as they were driving by. And I think it would be a nice thing for them to come back. Thank you for listening to me.
All right, thank you, Ms. Walsh, for making that request, bringing that to our attention. And I can assure you we will look into that with staff and have a response for you. Are there any other comments?
Mayor Story, I don't see any other attendees, and we have not received any emails on this item.
Okay. Seeing none, I'm going to now move on to other staff and city council comments. Let's start with staff comments.
Staff has no comments for this evening.
Okay. Council members have comments. Seeing none, I would just like to report back on the first Twilight concert, which happened on June the 15th. and it was a well-attended event. But what I just wanted to report out about, and one thing I noticed, and which is actually very wonderful, were the numbers of people who rode their bicycles and their electric bicycles down to the concert and the Esplanade. There were bicycles, just parked everywhere. They were all around the showers, and as well around the large palm tree. They were parked all around that. And I think I raised that point because I think it's going to be, I think, something that we should keep our eye on, and that we should think about providing bike parking infrastructure on the Esplanade. And so to accommodate all those bicycles, and which would encourage more people to ride their bicycles down there. I know that there are plans with the parklets for some bike parking, but I'm not sure if those would be sufficient. But I just wanted to bring that to, I think, staff and council's attention, just to watch that as that kind of, I anticipate, will grow and evolve as the bicycles, and particularly electric bicycles, become more popular. So that's my comment for the evening. Next, we'll come to the consent items. These are items that will be handled in one vote unless a council member wishes to pull an item for clarification or further discussion. Is there a request to pull a consent agenda item? Yes, Councilmember Bertrand.
May I make a comment about one of the items, but not pull it?
Yeah, if it's fairly, I think, quick, why don't you go ahead and make a comment, and we won't separately agendize it.
Thank you very much. So I was reading the BIA report, and I just want to comment on the fact that the BIA is working with the city, probably streets department, and for beautification, cleanup, and stuff like that. So I commend the BIA for doing that, and thank you for that cooperation with the city. Thank you.
Okay, are there any other requests to pull a consent agenda item? If not, I'll entertain a motion on the consent calendar.
I'll move approval of consent.
I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion by Councilmember Brown and a second by Councilmember Bertrand. May we have a roll call vote, please?
Councilmember Bertrand.
I approve.
Councilmember Brooks.
Aye.
Councilmember Brown.
Aye.
Vice Mayor Kaiser.
Aye.
Mayor Story.
Aye. And this
Thank you.
consent calendar passes unanimously, which will bring us to the general government public hearings for this evening. Councilmember Bertrand, did you still have your hand up, or?
Sorry, I was scrolling on the agenda and I made a comment that I should not have made. I'm sorry.
Well,
I just realized I was,
yeah, I recognize that, but I was just going to let it go by.
okay.
That's
I
fine.
just,
You
what am I talking about? It's not even discussed yet.
you can maybe mention it again later. Yes, Jamie.
Before we move on to item 8A, I noticed that the BIA representatives are not on the call at this time. So I just want to toss out that you may want to reorder item 8A and take it later in the evening and maybe start with 8B. Council's discretion, though.
On that, are we expecting representatives from the BIA to be in attendance? Did they let you know that they were going to be here?
My understanding is we do, but our finance director is on the call and he can chime in.
Okay, is there,
Yeah,
a motion
oh, go ahead.
no, yeah, go ahead, Jim.
Our senior accountant, Mark Sullivan's been in communication with them through the whole process. I'm guessing that they just forgot it was a 6 o'clock start time. But traditionally they're here and available for questions.
Let's see, is there, going back to, is there maybe a motion by the council to defer this item till later in the agenda?
Yeah, I'd like to make a motion to defer the item later in the agenda so that we can ensure that the BIA representatives are present and able to make comment.
I agree.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to move this item. Since I'm gonna maybe move it just before the current item D. And see if we'll revisit it at that time. Next, we have, then we'll move on to item B, which is the Coastal Commission recommendations, recommended modifications to Capitola's outdoor dining ordinance. The recommended action is to adopt a resolution accepting the California Coastal Commission's modifications to repeal and replace Capitola Municipal Code Section 17.96.170 outdoor dining in public right-of-way and amend Municipal Code Section 17.44.150B3 and 17.120.030. Can we have a staff report, please?
Yes. Let me jump in. I have to recuse myself due to my employment at Paradise Beach Grill. I'll be back.
Okay, good evening, Mayor Story and Council. Tonight I have a presentation on the certification of our outdoor dining ordinance. So prior to any zoning code or LCP section of code taking effect, the Coastal Commission is required to certify our ordinances. And tonight that is the focus of my presentation. I'm just going to quickly go over the history. Back in the spring of 2020, the City Council adopted an emergency temporary outdoor use permits due to the pandemic. And 1 year later, in April, the City Council directed staff to develop a permanent outdoor dining program. So since that time, we've been working towards our permanent outdoor dining program. Planning Commission review and recommendation happened in October and November of 2021. Their recommendation was to slow down and maybe do the prototype first and then move forward with the ordinance. In December of 2021, we gave two options to the City Council. City Council directed us to move forward with the ordinance and at the same time move forward with our prototype design, which we've been working through. In January of 2020, I submitted our LCP amendment to the Coastal Commission, and we worked closely with their staff for months. And in June, a couple weeks back, the Coastal Commission provided a conditional certification. So they put conditions on our ordinance that they would like to see incorporated into the ordinance. Just a quick overview of the program components. We have a maximum number of parking spaces. As Mayor Story just mentioned, we also have 2 required bicycle parking spaces, sound requirements, signs, materials, activation requirements, stormwater, utilities, maintenance. We have specific locations for sidewalk dining and street dining. And then we also have an administrative policy, which really outlines the city's oversight of these spaces as it is city property being leased to the businesses. And I'm happy to go back and answer any questions about this later, but I didn't want to go through every aspect of the ordinance at this point because it's probably the 4th time or more that you've seen these presentations. So tonight we're really focused on the Coastal Commission modifications. their staff asked for two modifications. The first, which aligns with what the city council had asked for originally. The city council, we wanted to do the first leases for 3 years, and then check in and review how the program's going, make sure we don't need to amend it. When it got, we didn't put anything specific in our ordinance about that. It was in our policy document. When it got to the Coastal Commission, they asked that we put this in our ordinance and then require that review to happen on a 5-year basis thereafter. So we'll be coming to the city council after 3 years of the program being in place, and we'll be doing a review of the entire program. So every restaurant that's been issued, that gets issued one of these permits, we'll give you an update on who's been in compliance, if there's any issues. The Coastal Commission is very interested to make sure that there's no impacts to our coastal resources and access. So we'll be reviewing that as well. And then once we give the city council the update, they'll have the option to either recertify, amend, or revoke the CDP, or they can revoke the entire program at that point if it's been problematic. And then, so that really aligns with, I think, where the city council had directed us originally. And second, they asked, we went through a back and forth. At first, you'll recall that we had a 50% dedication of the lease revenue that would go towards coastal access. When we first submitted our LCP update, they asked us to switch that to 100%. So all of the fees that are collected for parking, they wanted to have go towards coastal access. In your staff report as an attachment, I provided a summary of all the, our city goes above and beyond when it comes to coastal access and recreation. And when they saw our list of everything we're doing, our great recreation program, our lifeguards, our future wharf update, they said, you know what, you're right. You guys are doing a great job. We're not going to have oversight in an area that we don't need to. And so they actually redlined that 50% dedication out. So I think that was a big win for the city. So what happens after tonight? So tonight, if you adopt the two modifications that are suggested by the Coastal Commission, on Monday, I'll launch the lottery for the spaces. We had put in our administrative policy that the lottery would be available for 45 days. And we've been working internally on a letter that will go out to all of the restaurants in the city, and that would go out on Monday. And it provides an overview of the lottery system. It has an attachment of frequently asked questions. There's a lot of details in this next step that we want to make sure the restaurants are really clear about timing and all the details of what it means to lease, what types of permits are required. So we're going to get out ahead of it. I'll get that out to all of you as well, so you have a copy. So we'll launch the lottery next Monday. The Coastal Commission concurrence meeting. So after this meeting, if the city council says to move forward with their changes, the concurrence, there's one more meeting at Coastal Commission where they make it final. It becomes our certified LCP. That'll happen on July 15th. Following that, there's a meeting for the Planning Commission on July 21st when they'll review the prototype street dining deck designs, and hoping we get an approval that night so that the businesses can make a decision on whether or not they want to use the prototype designs. We did have a meeting with the businesses recently and got feedback, and the designer is incorporating some of the feedback from the businesses that we got. So next, the lottery will occur on August 16th. That's 45 days later. The Art and Wine Festival, that's the last big festival for the season, is September 10th and 11th. So our outdoor dining, we were directed by the city council to expire the temporary outdoor dining 60 days after Coastal Commission certification. So that would occur on September 15th. It's 2 months after the Coastal Commission concurrence meeting. And then we would go ahead and start issuing CDPs, so for the outdoor dining. And what I've also put in this document that's going to go out to the city is we've been working through how do we make sure that the businesses that don't want to move forward with a permanent, in the permanent program, we'll have them remove all of their outdoor dining by September 15th. Anyone that's like paid their deposit, they've got their space in the lottery, and they also have plans into the city at that point on September 15th, we're going to work with those restaurants to allow them to keep their temporary in place as long as they're working towards their permanent until such time that they get their building permit, and then they can take out the temporary and start to do their construction. So that's all in the guidance document. So our recommended action tonight is to adopt a resolution accepting the California Coastal Commission modifications to repeal and replace Capitola Muni Code section 17.96170 outdoor dining in the public right of way, and amend Muni Code section 17.44150B3 and 17.120.030. And that concludes my presentation. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Councilmember Brown.
Thank you. I had noticed in the ordinance on page 51, there was discussion about the dining deck materials being high quality and durable, and I think that's great guidance. I had some residents reach out with some concerns about some of the guidelines that they thought were going to be in place regarding the furniture, that perhaps it would only be one kind of umbrella or one kind of chair that the outdoor dining decks would be able to have. And there was concern that one, it would be cost prohibitive for some of the business owners, but then also that it kind of prevents the opportunity for there to be character for each of the restaurants taking part of this. And so I didn't see anything about it in the ordinance, and I know this comes back to Planning Commission. So I'm just wondering if that's something that the Planning Commission is going to continue to provide guidance on, or if that's something that hasn't really been finalized yet.
So within the prototype design, it has not been finalized. So that is one of the suggestions within the prototype design, that a certain type of like outdoor chair, not necessarily one specific design, but there's many options, but utilizing a high quality furniture. But so the Planning Commission will be looking at that in July for the prototype design and considering it. In terms of the custom designs, the Planning Commission will look at the whole design. So they'll look at when somebody comes in with their custom design, they'll look at the furniture, they'll look at the umbrellas, they'll look at the whole package to ensure that it meets that requirement. So the requirement is loose enough that, there's definitely design freedom there in order for them to bring forward what they'd like. And I can bring that up at the Planning Commission meeting, that was mentioned during this meeting. And I agree with you that more options are better. So in terms of helping the businesses.
If I'm understanding correctly, then it sounds like someone could use the prototype design, and the prototype design would include specific furniture that you would need to use if you just want this administrative permit that's just done. You're going to use this design, it's approved. If they wanted to use the prototype deck, but a different kind of furniture than is included in the prototype design, then it would be considered kind of a custom. And then that just needs to be approved separately. It doesn't mean you can't have that kind of furnishings. It just means you have to have that approved separately. Am I understanding that correctly?
That's correct. Yep.
Okay, cool. Thank you.
Councilmember Bertrand.
Yeah, thank you very much, Mayor. I'll just chime in on the furniture comment. So I had a comment or two on, we've already purchased the furniture. They didn't want to repurchase furniture. So with the clarification of Commissioner Brown, Councilperson Brown, then that should be attended at that time. So Ms. Hurley, you mentioned that you've met with the merchants, and a couple of comments I've had is about the costs. Has that been nailed down? And what was their general response? You said they gave suggestions, which means they're probably thinking about it and they're not against it. So I'm just trying to get an idea what they think generally, if you want to characterize that.
Yeah, we got quite a few comments actually about the furniture and the umbrellas. And the other comment that I have a list of comments, and I'm sorry they weren't in my presentation this evening, but one comment in particular was just trying to maximize the space. There were some new design ideas of rather than have planters all along the edge with railings, why not put places where people can sit and look out and have almost like a higher bar area that to just get more spaces in these parking spaces. So I will bring forward the whole list of comments from that design meeting to the Planning Commission when they're reviewing the prototype design. But that will be decided at that meeting. And but they're one of the biggest the comment we heard the most was about the furniture and the estimated cost, I believe, for 2 spaces to build it out with the estimated cost is about $25,000. It's expensive, but it's a long-term investment. So I have those numbers and I'd be happy to share those with the council and send them out.
Any other questions from council members? Seeing none, Katie, I had a question about the bicycle parking. Bicycles are on my mind. Are those spaces per parklet, are those going to be reserved and limited for customers of the establishment? Are they open to the public to be able
there's no, I think they're open to the public. It's really supposed to offset the public parking space. So it will not be just, and from my understanding, we didn't put anything in the ordinance that says it's just for those businesses. It's really to help mitigate the impact of removing public parking from our streets.
Yeah, in reading the section on the bicycle, it was to me kind of unclear one way or the other within the ordinance. It does say that the street dining deck that eliminates an on-street parking space must include a bicycle parking rack integrated into the street dining deck design. Or it says within the private property of the eating or drinking establishment. It kind of makes it sound it could be proprietary instead of just open to the public. Would it be better to, if our expectation is that it is going to be available to the public, just maybe mention that in the ordinance?
At this point, we can't really make any modifications to the ordinance, but if we need to, we could put something within our policy and bring it back to the council.
Okay, yeah. Yeah, I think that would be good to just clarify that because I anticipate those kinds of issues may come up down there. I think starting out may be good to just be clear with everyone. Let's see. Jamie, you had your hand up? Yes.
I was just going to note that each one of these parklets is going to get a revocable encroachment permit. And the revocable encroachment permit is going to include a lot of sort of standard language about they're doing this in the public right of way. This is what they can do. This is what they can't do. Yeah. So I think we can easily capture that there, that bike parking on your site is public and you can't restrict people's use to it. So hopefully that can clear that up. And because I do agree, if it's not clear, it can lead to confusion, which can lead to conflict.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for that. That sounds like a good solution. Seeing no other questions on the staff report, I'll go to the public, see if any members of the public wish to address this item. If you do, raise your hand in the Zoom application or dial *9. The moderator will give you 3 minutes to speak, or you may send an email to public comments at ci.capitola.ca.us.
Mayor Story, I do not see any attendees wishing to speak on item 8B, and I do not have any emails on this item.
Okay, well, let's move on. Let me know if anything should come in, Larry. So with that, I'll bring it back to the council for further deliberation and action. And I see Councilmember Brown.
Yeah, I'd like to make a motion to adopt the resolution accepting the California Coastal Commission modifications to repeal and replace Capitola Municipal Code section as listed on the screen in the public right of way and amend the municipal codes also as listed here on the screen.
Second.
There's a motion by Councilmember Brown, seconded by Councilmember Bertrand. Before I call for a roll call vote, I just want to, I think, extend my congratulations to staff for negotiating this with the Coastal Commission and really doing that successfully. I think the outcome is very reasonable on the part of the Coastal Commission. And so thank you for that good work and bringing the Coastal Commission around to our thinking. With that, Councilmember Brooks.
Yeah, I just wanted to add a quick comment. Great jobs to staff, but in addition, Katie, I was just in Los Gatos and they are laying the foundation for many of these parklets or spots. And I just think it would be a good time if any of the council members wanted to make a quick trip, not on the weekend in traffic, but to kind of see these things go up and what they look like, because it's pretty phenomenal. So kudos to staff. Thank you for all the hard work.
Yeah, well, thank you. So with that, I'm going to call for a roll call vote on the motion.
Councilmember Bertrand.
I approve.
Councilmember Brooks.
Aye.
Councilmember Brown.
Aye.
Vice Mayor Kaiser.
She is recused.
Oh, I'm so sorry. Thank you. And Mayor Story.
Aye. The motion passes unanimously by those council members that are able to vote on it. So thank you, everyone. I think we all look forward to moving ahead with our permanent parklet program. Now let's go on to the item 8C, which is the potential second home tax follow-up. The recommended action is to provide direction to staff to either one, continue preparing the materials necessary to place a second home tax on the November 2022 ballot, or two, do not proceed with placing a second home tax on the November 2022 ballot. Can we have a staff report, please?
Sure. Give me a second to share my screen. How does that look, Mr. Moderator?
Looks good.
Great. Okay, so we're back in front of you to talk a little bit about this potential second home tax. Council will recall that on May 23rd, we received polling results showing community sentiments about a second home tax. While the results from the polling showed a plurality, over 50% support for a second home tax, that support tended to wane as additional information was presented to potential voters. In addition, we've learned that a second home tax that was placed on the ballot by the City Council would require 2/3 to pass. So as we discussed last time, 2/3 support is a very challenging bar to meet for any measure. And given the polling results, it would require a very strong campaign to have any chance of passage. So at our meeting then on June 9th, we held a follow-up where we got some direction from the council. And in addition, we provided some additional input about some different types of questions the council members had. And the conclusion of the meeting, council did three things: provided direction to proceed with drafting an ordinance and incorporated some specific details of what would go into the ordinance. Council also included in the motion that members, as allowed by the Brown Act, would assess community support, potentially looking into an outreach plan and analyzing also whether or not there may be a community campaign for such a tax measure. And then also council asked for this to come back this evening here 2 weeks later. As a summary for the direction received at the meeting, the threshold for the tax was to be people who occupied their homes less than 90 days a year would be subject to it. The tax amount was set a bit lower at the $4,000 level. And then we went through a bit of an enforcement protocol and exemptions, which the council identified that would be included in the draft ordinance the city attorney is working on. The uses we haven't yet determined, so we will touch on that in a second here. So if we were to decide to move forward, staff would need direction on the proposed uses. As I mentioned 2 weeks ago, my suggestion would be that we look for uses that are either identified in the polling or there's a lot of community interest in, things that would really engender sort of support for the item, and maybe split that between some general fund uses. The options, should we decide to move forward, would be we could get direction on uses this evening. Council could call a special meeting in mid-June to discuss further. Council could consider forming a subcommittee to recommend uses for a second home tax. Or lastly, you could provide that direction at the July 28th meeting. If we decide not to move forward this evening, then we would just need the direction to discontinue working on this potential tax measure at this time. So with that, this is the recommendation as identified by the mayor at the outset, and I'm available to answer any questions.
Seeing no questions from council members, I will take this matter out to the public and see if any attendees would like to speak on this agenda item. If so, raise your hand in the Zoom application or you can dial *9. The moderator will give you 3 minutes to speak. You may also send an email to public.comments@ci.capitola.ca.us.
Mayor Story, I do not see any attendees with their hands raised on this item. And I have not received any emails for item, I guess that's item 8C.
Okay. Yeah, let me know if anything should come in, Larry. So it looks like Councilmember Bertrand, you had your hand up. I'll bring it back to council for further deliberation and action.
Yeah, I'd like to move forward, but some of the things we did talk about was reaching out to some of the stakeholders, and we did get a message from realty or commission, a group of realtors. That's one stakeholder, but there's other stakeholders too. So that was some of the things we talked about last time, and I'm not sure we've done a great effort in that regard. At least my participation hasn't been that great. So I'm not sure what others did, but I think it should be a consistent, coherent effort from the city. And I think some of the discussion we had last time was that if this was to be successful, sort of like our other general revenue measures in the past, we identified real needs for the city, things that would resonate with the people who live here, address real needs. The survey that was done does address that to some extent, but I don't know if it is broad enough to, really meet all the things that maybe would, be very useful to make this measure successful. So I'd just like to put out those two things. I think we should do more effort to reach out to our stakeholders, do that in a organized way, and do more effort, maybe a subcommittee, which is a good idea. We did have some suggestions about that last time, which didn't seem to go over, but I think that is still a good idea to try to come up with some really good suggestions for the purpose of this. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Before I continue with council deliberation, I do see there's a hand up in the Zoom application. I'm going to go back to the public and see if the hand up is on this second home tax item.
Yes, Mayor Story, we have John D.
Yes. Hi, John D. Can you hear us?
Okay, I've unmuted, and I wanted to say that I talked with, well, it's only one resident, over at the Capitola Library, and that resident told me she hadn't heard anything about a second home tax, and she was wondering what would the money be spent on. She wanted to see a list of what it was, and she also said, "Gosh, I've lived in Capitola quite a while, and the city used to be able to balance its budget. So, is it that the expenses are greater or the revenues are less?" She wanted to understand that. So that's my comment.
All right, thank you, John D. Are there any other members of the public that would like to speak on this item?
I don't see any other items, and I have not found any emails on this item, Mayor Story.
Okay, I'm going to now come back to the council then and recognize Vice Mayor Kaiser.
Thank you. So I, after our last meeing, did meet with a few of our community members, also members of our financial committee, and sort of spitballed some ideas along with staff members too. And I think while I want to support the ballot measure, I think that how under the gun we are, it's going to be something that would take a little bit more initiative from either community members, possibly some more campaigning, definitely some more outreach to the public. I'd like the public, kind of as Joan D was saying, that, she's hearing from people that people aren't aware of what it's for, what it's going to contribute to. So I think that trying to squeeze it into the November ballot might be a little bit unattainable for us right now. But I think that moving forward, it's something that we should still address and have staff and in our community moving forward towards getting it on the next presidential election ballot.
Councilmember Brooks.
Thank you, Mayor Story. So yeah, I think that the obstacles are real, and in looking at this potential ballot measure going on this November ballot. I know that several other cities are currently looking at that, and that our legal can use some of those outcomes in the next year and from these cities to help us gauge whether this is feasible for our city, and that it's that we're set up for in regards to any potential litigation. That was one thing I mentioned before about, what would Council A be able to afford this, and what would that look like? What does the appeals process look like for us? So a lot of obstacles that are in our way, but not to say that it's not attainable. I think there's still opportunity here. So tonight, I'm not ready to move this forward on to the November ballot. I'd like to see some community engagement on this in the next year for the 24 presidential ballot. If in fact that the other measures do well, I think I heard San Francisco's doing it. We'll see what the outcome in Santa Cruz, how that goes. And so forth. And so we can revisit this in a year or so to see whether this is something that would work for our city. And those are my comments.
Thank you. Councilmember Brown.
Thank you, Mayor Story. I think, my thoughts on this echo a lot of what my fellow council members have already said. I think this is something that as a city, we would benefit from moving forward with. I do have concerns with moving forward with it on the November ballot, especially seeing the kind of voter turnout we saw in the primaries this year. I agree with some of the previous comments that perhaps in a presidential election year, we'd have a higher voter turnout, which would also benefit us in terms of our kind of ballot measures. Additionally, I think if we're going to be putting this on the ballot in November of 2024, we would probably want to start doing outreach, any additional polling, and considerations of what an ordinance might look like in summer of 23, because to the point of some of the other comments that were made, I think we just started talking about this in May, and we would have had to have an ordinance ready essentially now. And so that only gave us 30 days to really pull this all together. And I know that we did the polling, of course, and that was beneficial to have that information. But I'm concerned that we're not going to get to the 2/3 threshold to get this passed in November. And so I agree with others that now this year is not the time for this ballot measure, but I look forward to being a part of supporting it should we choose to put it on the ballot in November of 24.
Councilmember Bertrand.
Yeah, I think everyone's mentioned a lot of things that would not bode well for a successful campaign. So my question of staff is, can we move forward with a suggested, a suggested ordinance, not for November, but something that we could use when we're talking about this to the community. And, you know, I think Yvette mentioned that there's other cities and communities that are considering this, and Sam, our attorney, could take those things into account so that we do avoid litigation or possible efforts to slow it down. So that's my suggestion. And, you know, so not for this November, but for later. And we basically develop something that we could actually have that would address what we're trying to accomplish, at least in terms of the legal.
I'm happy, Councilmember Bertrand. I'm sorry if there's an echo here. I do know of a couple cities like Councilmember Brooks mentioned are looking to put a measure on the ballot. I know Santa Cruz, some residents put a measure on the ballot. I've been in close contact with Jamie about this. We'll keep talking, and certainly my office is watching these measures that are going on the ballot. And so we'll be assessing in the next few months, and I can work with Jamie about pushing that information out to the council.
Yes, Sam, I think your guidance would be very helpful in this. Thank you very much. Another thing, if I may, Mayor. So, Sam, your law office will be dealing with the legal issues, but if there's anything that comes about that we would like to know in terms of our discussion about, you know, some of the resonance with the community, some of the issues that were more, our issues are going to be different, but I'm just sort of trying to get an idea what their experience is also, because it is a tax and it does have to meet a real need. Thank you.
All right, thank you. It seems the sentiment of the council is to select a second option, which is do not proceed with placing a second home tax on the November 2022 ballot. Is there someone that wants to make a motion to that effect?
I'd like to make a motion to not proceed with this ballot measure on this November ballot.
There's a motion. Is there a second to that motion?
No, second.
Okay, there's a motion by Councilmember Brooks and seconded by Councilmember Bertrand not to place the second home tax on the November 2022 ballot. Is there any final words by council members before I call for a roll call vote? Seeing none, can we have a roll call vote, please?
Councilmember Bertrand.
I agree.
Councilmember Brooks.
Aye.
Councilmember Brown.
Aye.
Vice Mayor Kaiser.
Aye.
Mayor Story.
Aye. The motion passes unanimously. Now, I wanted to check in and see if their representatives of the BIA are in attendance.
Devin's here.
Yes, Mayor. Devin Salter, who put the budget together for the BIA, is attending the meeting.
Great, great. Okay, so we're going to now go back to item A. I just want to announce that I have a conflict since I am subject to the assessment by the BIA. Therefore, I'm on both sides of this arrangement. So I am going to recuse and step away from this meeting and turn it over to Vice Mayor Kaiser.
Thank you, Mayor. Okay, so we are moving back up to item A, which is consider a resolution for the levy of Capitola Village and Wharf Business Improvement Area assessments for fiscal year 2022 to 2023. The recommended action here is to conduct the notice public hearing and adopt the proposed resolution levying the fiscal year 2022-23 Capitola Village and Wharf Business Improvement Area assessments and accepting the CVWBIA annual plan and budget. And Jim, is this your presentation?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Let me share my screen and I'll go through a couple of slides here. Does that look okay, moderator?
Yes, that looks good.
Thank you. So just by way of background, the BIA was formed by the in 2005, June of 2005, when the City Council adopted Ordinance 889. And it's a business-based self-imposed assessment district with assessments paid by businesses within the district for improvements and activities that support, revitalize, and attract tourists to those businesses. The assessment amounts are determined by business classification and number of full-time equivalent employees. So as was the case last fiscal year, due to the pandemic, the proposed assessments for this year have been reduced 25%, which was the same as what they were last year, for everyone except the hotels and lodging establishments, and those remain reduced 50% as they were last year. Businesses can make in lieu payments in the form of gift certificates for use by the BA in normal years, but we didn't have any, there were no in lieu payments last year, and again, with the reduced assessments, there's no in lieu payments this year. So as far as the assessment process, we set on June 9th, we presented a staff report and made the annual report available to the public and set a hearing for tonight. The hearing was noticed in the Santa Cruz Sentinel and mailed to all the affected business owners. And the California state law, as well as our Muni code, require the City Council to conduct a public hearing annually prior to approving the assessments. And those assessments are submitted with an annual plan and budget for council consideration, which is included in the agenda packet. And just as a reminder, there is no fiscal impact to the city. All services provided by the city are reimbursed by the BIA, both the Public Works Department as well as for work done by the Finance Department. As a reminder, the BIA budget does include restricted transient occupancy tax, or TOT revenue, which was in result of Measure J, which was approved by voters in 2018. And Measure J dedicated a portion of TOT revenues for local business groups. And in February of 2019, the City Council directed that the TOT revenues restricted for local business groups be split evenly between the BIA and the Chamber of Commerce. And we didn't do a reso or an ordinance, but the request or kind of verbal requirement was that 25% of their TOT revenues be allocated towards village improvements and or enhancements. That the TOT portion of the budget is the revenue, as well as what those expenditures are going to be broken out separately from the regular budget, and that they provide an annual report on how the restricted TOT revenues have been used. So for fiscal year 22-23, the BIA budget has $32,000. I think I've actually bumped that up a little. I'll have to coordinate with them on that. And out of the 32,000, they have programmed 3,000 for directory printing, 4,000 for miscellaneous advertising, 5,000 for website management, 14,000 for village enhancements, and 6,000 for holidays and events. The 20,000, when I went back and looked at council comments back in February of 19, it was really for the village, the 25% was really village enhancements and holiday events. So you can see they have 20,000 of the 32 programmed for that. As far as what assessments look like, these again are the same as last year. So these on the top, well, actually everything except the bottom line represents about 75% of what the assessments were prior to the pandemic. Again, same as last year. Hotels, motels, and inns on the bottom, that's half of what they were paying pre-pandemic. And that concludes my presentation. So the recommended action, as the Vice Mayor stated earlier, is to conduct a public hearing and adopt the proposed resolution levying the fiscal year 22-23 Capitola Village and Wharf Business Improvement Area assessments and accepting the BIA annual plan and budget. And with that, I'm happy to answer any questions. And as again, Devin Salter, who prepared the budget for the BIA, is also in the meeting.
Awesome. Thank you, Jim. Do we have any questions from council members? Okay, I don't see any. And Devin, if you have anything you want to add, now is a good time for that, I think.
Yes. First, can you guys hear me?
Yes, thank you.
Okay. First of all, I apologize for not being on earlier. I just assumed that the council meeting started at 7 and not earlier. So
that's okay.
I apologize for that.
All good.
Karen's usually on these, and she asked me at the last minute if I would go ahead and be present. No, I don't really have anything to add. Just thank you. I just want to thank the city of Capitola for working with us and all the help that Jim has given me over the past couple of years as treasurer to just understand more of the reports and how the income and expense thing works within the city. But if you guys have any questions of me in reference to the budget, I'd be more than happy to answer those at this time.
Great. Councilmember Bertrand?
Yeah, I'm ready for my comments now.
Okay.
So Devin, thank you very much, Vice Mayor. So Devin, I had jumped in earlier because my scrolling was off. So I read about the many things that you've done. I'd like to say that my daughter, when she was of that age, she loved the Easter egg hunt. And every time we go by, sometimes we see it if we go by the right time, and kids just love it. So, but my comment is about the Public Works and Village Enhancement, and I'll just read this. You may not have it in front of you. Basically, BIA contributes annually to the City of Capitola Public Works Department, and our contributions are used to help maintain the village and the wharf. Sidewalk cleaning, banners, and new parking signage are part of this year's Village Enhancement. So I know we did the surfboard sign for the parking. I think that's an example. And I'm really glad you're working with Public Works on this. And I was just wondering if you want to expand on that and, maybe some of the things that you may be planning in the future.
Sure, Jacques. So in regards to the village enhancements, or let me backtrack and talk about events. Most of the events that actually happen in the village, other than the sip and strolls, are put on by the chamber. We give a portion of our money, a small portion, to the chamber to help with those events, i.e. the Easter egg hunt, surfing Santa, and some of the holiday things that go on.
Thank you.
So, and then as far as village enhancement, I know that we've agreed and we've talked with the city about adding some sidewalk cleaning, because I mean, honestly, once a month or once every other month just isn't enough to make it look, nice or presentable to people that visit our area. So we will be adding, sidewalk cleaning in July and August and September on top of what the city is paying for as well. The banners are up. We've really spent some money on our website, which we think is going to help the visitor experience a lot. Added, parking directories and that type of thing to the website. Also in the process of working with the city and hopefully putting QR codes on signs in certain areas so that people visiting the area can access that and help them where to go, whether it be to a public restroom or what have you. So I don't know if that answers your question, but
well, they expanded, item 10.9, and I didn't. Yeah, I was wondering about the Easter egg hunt. The chamber does do that, but it's nice to know that you help contribute to that. So thanks for, clearing that up.
Absolutely.
Great. Do we have any other council comments? I see Councilwoman Brooks.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. I'm sorry, is this questions or comments?
We have moved on to comments.
Okay, awesome, thanks. So I would just like to share a few comments then. I think that the BIA has been doing a tremendous job. I really love the new surfboard sign. I really love all of the work that they've been doing and the commitment to the village and the neighboring streets. I also would like to encourage the BIA to continue working with our police department and the Youth Action Network in their next steps to engage our youth when school starts. I know that there were some issues with lots of students coming down into the village and leaving their bikes and causing a little mayhem, if you will. And so I know that that many of the businesses have been involved in troubleshooting and being creative and ideas. And I just want them to kind of encourage to do so because we have a big gap with summer here, and it more than likely will pick up when school starts in August. And so again, thank you for everything that you're doing, and yeah, great work.
Thank you.
Thank you. And Councilwoman Brown.
Thank you. I also just want to take a quick moment to commend Devin and all the other members of the BIA for the work that they've been doing. In the time that I've been the council's representative to the BIA, I've seen how hard they've worked on things such as their website and getting people into the village, their social media activity has gone up quite a bit. And their sip and stroll and their cookie walk, the Easter egg hunt, during the pandemic, they were really able to pivot and continue that Easter egg hunt in a way that allowed for the continuation of those kind of family-friendly events in the holidays in the village. So again, just good work to all of you. It's I really enjoy attending your meetings and being the council's representative to the BIA. So again, I really appreciate it. And with that, if it's an appropriate time, I would like to make a motion to accept the CVW BIA annual plan and budget.
I'll second that.
Great. So we have a motion by Councilwoman Brown and a second by Councilperson Bertrand. I do just want to say that I think having the BIA and having them as part of our community and being able to work amongst our small town, with whether it's PD, other businesses, whatnot, I think it's really important. And I'm glad that we can continue on, and let's take that to a roll call, please.
Councilmember Bertrand.
I agree.
Councilmember Brooks.
Aye.
Councilmember Brown.
Aye.
Vice Mayor Kaiser.
Aye.
Mayor Story is recused. Thank you.
Yes. So for those that can vote, it is unanimous. So item 8A, we will, do I have to say it? Forget. Okay, good. All right, that passes unanimously and Mayor Story is back.
I'm back.
All right. Thank you.
All right, let's move on to the next item, which is D. And this is coming back to revisit our 2022-23 budget. And it's to consider the next year's budget and the capital improvement program for the city of Capitola. The recommended action is to approve the proposed resolution adopting the fiscal year 2022-23 city budget and capital improvement program. Can we have a staff report, please?
Yes, Mayor Story, thank you. Give me one moment to share my screen again. Does that look okay, Larry?
Yes, that's good.
Thank you. So just to kind of go over the process that we went through, our proposed budget was distributed April 29th. The Finance Advisory Committee held meetings on May 3rd as well as May 17th. We also did one, well, it was outside of the budget, but we did one for the second home tax earlier this month. And then City Council held meetings on May 4th and May 19th. Those were special meetings for just budget hearings. And then at the last May 19th meeting, Council provided direction to return this evening for potential budget adoption. So just to kind of go over the recap of the general fund, our operating budget is imbalanced by design, and that goes back to the council goals that I'll cover just below here. However, we are maintaining a target balance of right around 1.4 million. And in addition, we have $385,000 set aside in a resiliency account. The reason our budget is out of balance is we are utilizing 3.7 million of available general fund resources for capital improvement projects and city council goals. Those I'll go over, it's been a while since we talked about these, but 1.5 million for the wharf rehabilitation project, 150,000 for the community center maintenance, the Universal Design Park, 275,000, which was an increase from our last meeting. A funding study for City Hall options, 50,000. Beginning to set funding aside for the Stockton Bridge reinforcement of 350K. Bluff and Cliff Drive study, 50,000. Noble Gulch engineering feasibility analysis, 50,000. Fire risk reduction, 50,000. I believe those bottom four are part of our LHMP. Continuing on, City Hall maintenance, 100,000. We've programmed 20,000 to add 2 more EV charging stations. We have 100,000 programmed for bike and pedestrian safety projects, 50,000 for some additional Peary Park Bridge maintenance. We're going to do a deposit of an additional 500,000 in our CalPERS retirement trust. And then we have some miscellaneous projects that are really staff driven, but we have 50,000 kind of set aside. There's about 6 or 7 of those. And then again, the $385,000 in the resiliency account. As far as capital improvement program, just kind of putting up the new ones for fiscal year 22-23. Actually just talked about those on the previous slide, but City Park Design and Stockton Bridge, you can see our general fund dollars. The Capitola Wharf is general fund and Measure F dollars. And that number is wrong. I apologize for that. That should be 400,000 of general fund and 1.1 million of Measure F. Apologize for that. The City Hall Maintenance and Community Center are coming out of the facility fund, and then pavement management, $587,000 between our RTC Measure D money and state SB1 funding. That went the wrong way. So at our May 19th special meeting, City Council direction was to increase funding for the Universal Design Park by an additional 125,000, which brings us to the total of 275, to allocate 112,000 of restricted TOT revenue or funds for early childhood and youth programs, and that's 61,000 of our FY 22-23 projected revenue into early childhood and youth program community grants, and then utilizing 51,000 of existing ECYP funding in the recreation division. And Nikki has a plan for that listed up there. The youth program scholarships of 39,000, the swim lesson equity program for 10,000, and the job skills program for 2,000. Some additional budget revisions since our last hearing. We received our final Q3 for the fiscal year, which was first quarter of this calendar year, January through March sales tax revenues, and they're continue to exceed our estimates. We keep adjusting up and it keeps surpassing them. So we have increased our beginning fund, our sales tax revenue for the current fiscal year by 100,000, which gives us basically an additional 100,000 to start next year with. We also, due to that, moved up our projection for next fiscal year by 65.5. taking our, and that's just the Bradley Burns 1%. That takes us up to an even 6.4 million. I think the most we've ever done before is about just under 5.9. So that's a pretty big jump there since pre-pandemic. On the expenditures, we've made 161, almost 162,000 in amendments, and that was increasing the Universal Design Project by 125. I got the actual invoice amount from the Housing Action Homeless Action Partnership, so that we moved an additional $1,525 out of general fund dollars and moved it to our Housing Special Revenue Fund. So total funding now for the shelter costs is $31,525, and then we have another about $9,000 that goes towards out of the general fund. I also received the final amounts for our JPA insurance premiums. So I've decreased workers' comp by $8,000, but increased liability by $46,500. All of this combined increased our projected ending fund balance next year by a little over $3,500. So a lot of movement to not really change much in the overall big picture. Just as a reminder, during our mid-year budget review, we'll be evaluating our actual sales tax revenues over the next two quarters and see if this performance continues and if we need to make any additional amendments. We'll also be looking at performance of other key revenue sources, but TOT and cannabis tax being two of the top. TOT is doing really well, so we'll see if that one goes. And cannabis tax seems to be coming in where we originally projected. It's kind of gotten up to where we thought it would be a couple of years ago. So we're making sure that one's kind of holding there. There is the potential to consider lease terms for the community center, hopefully by mid-year. We should have an update on our federal WARF funding request. And then our projected fund balance of 1.4, plus we can talk about the $1.4 million fund balance plus the 385 in resiliency account if we choose. And if any of this stuff, such as the community center, or we get word on our funding request for the WARF come in earlier, we don't have to wait till mid-year, but that's kind of just keeping our list here of things that we're tracking right now. So summary, general fund is structurally balanced in the future. Again, it's out of balance this year, but that's intentional as we have some additional resources we're using. It is structurally balanced up until the sunset of Measure F in December of 2027, which causes it to go out of balance. And our reserves remain at target levels. We're a little under this year. I think I talked about this at the last hearing, that we're going to take kind of a 2-year approach to getting them back up to the target. Sales tax and TOT continue strong performance. So again, we're going to keep monitoring those and make sure that that continues. And if those start to drop off, we'll be back in front of council for sure. Or if they continue to blow up like they are, we'll be back as well. Expenditures, just all of our service levels have returned to pre-pandemic levels. A lot of the seasonal staff that we had kind of reduced during the pandemic has all returned. So we should be seeing the same levels of service that residents are accustomed to. Not that I don't think it dropped off that much during the pandemic. Continued funding for community grant program is fully funded, and it includes a combination of general fund and CDBG CV grant funding. And then 1 3/4 vacant positions remain frozen from the onset. And I don't think there's any plans on those right now. So recommended action is to approve the resolution adopting the fiscal year 2022-2023 operating budget and capital improvement program. And that completes my presentation, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
I'm not seeing any hands up from council members, so I'm gonna go out to the public and see if any members of the public would like to speak to the council about our 2022-23 budget.
Mayor Story, I do not see any attendees with their hands raised, and we have not received any emails on this item.
Okay, I guess I should tell everybody, if you want to send an email, send it to publiccomments@ci.capitola.ca.us. Yeah, Larry, if something comes in before we conclude this item, just let me know. But with that, I'll bring it back to council and determine the will of the council. Hopefully we'll have a budget next year.
I'll move approval of staff recommendation.
Thank you, Councilmember Brown. Is there a second? And second, I believe, by Vice Mayor Kaiser. Did I? Okay. With that, let's just go to roll call vote. I know we've been working on this many sessions over the past few months, and so it is now come to the final action. So can we have a roll call vote, please?
Councilmember Bertrand.
I agree.
Councilmember Brooks.
Aye.
Councilmember Brown.
Aye.
Vice Mayor Kaiser.
Aye.
Mayor Story.
Aye. Thank you. Yay, we have a budget for next year. And
Yes,
hand
thank
in
you.
hand with the budget, usually there comes a consideration of the fee schedule. So which is the next item on our agenda. The recommended action is to conduct the notice public hearing on the proposed city fee schedule for fiscal year 2022-23 and adopt the proposed resolution amending the current fee schedule. Can we have a staff report, please?
Yes, thank you, Mayor Story. Let me share my screen one last time. Does that look okay, Larry?
Yes, it does.
Thank you. So just by way of background, the annual review of the fee schedule, as the mayor mentioned, is part of the budget process. Back in November of 2015, the city council adopted the current fee schedule, and at that time, the consultant recommended an annual review and a consumer price or CPI increase. Most fees have been increased each year by the San Francisco Bay Area annual CPI, and that CPI rate for this year, which is we use the calendar year, so January through December of 2021 is 3.21%, and that's the increase that staff is recommending. Just to give a little context of what they've looked like over the last few years. You can see in fiscal year 18-19 and 19-20, they were kind of in this same range, over 3%. It was the same in 2021. However, that was kind of a weird time because we were looking at calendar year 19 and 20 activity, and there was a lot of recovery going on. So it was kind of a weird timing on that. So at that time, we decided not to do an increase. Last year, which was more representative of what was really happening during the pandemic, was 1.72, and that was what we did last year. So as I mentioned, there was a cost of service fee study back in 2015. Best management practices is to do that every 5 years. I think I've been kind of beating this drum for a couple of years now that we began this, and we began a fee study in January of 2020. We put the brakes on it in March of 2020. I'm sorry. Yeah, we started it in 2020 thinking it would be ready for fiscal year 2021. But when the pandemic hit, we put the brakes on it. We kicked around starting it up last year, but kind of wanted to give another year of recovery before we started adjusting fees. So now at this point, we're going to be kicking that off actually next week. Started doing a little bit of preliminary work. And then the idea is to present results to City Council later this year or early 2023. And then any adjustments, and some could go up, some could go down. Any adjustments would go into effect July of next year. And staff is not recommending any fee amendments at this time, just simply the CPI adjustment. But I do want to point out that with the approval of the permanent outdoor dining, we will be back in July. Once we get all of those fees kind of nailed down. We didn't want to rush through and have fees not correctly stated in the fee schedule. So we'll be bringing an amendment back in July with the outdoor dining fees. So our recommended action, as the mayor stated, is to conduct the notice public hearing and adopt the resolution adopting the fee schedule for fiscal year 22-23 and adopting the animal service fees as set by Santa Cruz County. And with that, I'm happy to answer any questions.
Yes, Councilmember Brooks.
Yeah, Jim, just one clarifying question. We're increasing the base of what by 1 point, whatever that first screen was. What's the actual, what are we getting from to and to? That's
All of,
I was just a little
all of the fees that are within the schedule would have a CPI increase of 3.21%.
Okay, and last year was the 1.7. Got it.
Correct. I strung that all together. Sorry.
I see. Okay, and then this increase by 3.21% goes into effect of July 2023.
No, July of this year.
Okay, and what did you say goes into effect of July 2023?
The plan
after
is,
the report.
Yeah, the plan is to do the fee study kind of into this fall and early next
Okay.
spring and be queued up for next July.
Okay, I'm tracking. I gotcha. Thanks.
Sure.
Okay, other questions from council members? Yeah, I'm gonna go after the public. I see that there are no attendees in the Zoom application. I'll just check. Larry, are there any emails from members of the public on
No,
this
we have,
item?
Mayor Story, we have not received any emails, and you're correct, there are no attendees of the meeting at this point.
Okay, with that, I'm gonna bring it back for a motion. Councilmember Brooks.
Yeah, I'd like to make a motion to approve the proposed resolution adopting the, oops, wrong one. Everybody, hold on. There it is. The motion to conduct the notice public hearing on the proposed city fee schedule for fiscal year 22-23 and adopt the proposed resolution amending the current fee schedule.
I can second that.
The second by Vice Mayor Kaiser. Can we have a roll call vote, please?
Councilmember Bertrand.
I agree.
Councilmember Brooks.
Aye.
Councilmember Brown.
Aye.
Vice Mayor Kaiser.
Aye.
Mayor Story.
Aye.
Thank you.
And that brings us to item 8F. And that item is to approve the proposed resolution authorizing the fiscal year 2022-23 annual salary adjustment consistent with existing employee labor agreements. And as part of the introduction to that item, it is my job to, as mayor, to make the following announcement. So before the city council this evening, as part of agenda item 8F, is a recommendation to approve the updated salary schedule for 2022-23 for employees, including at-will management employees. At-will management employees consist of department heads and city manager. Effective July 10th, 2022, the cost of living increase for the at-will employees will be 2.75%. In addition, city health contributions for at-will management employees will increase by $25 per month, effective July 10th, 2022. And can we go on with the rest of the staff report on this item?
Thank you, Mayor Story. Let me share my screen. Okay, I hope everyone can see that. Okay. It looks good for the moderator, so hopefully it looks good for everyone else. Sorry. This is a quick one. So the employees in the city came to agreement on contracts back in 2021. So they have everyone has existing MOUs. During the negotiated process last time, each group agreed to different COLAs and healthcare contributions. Included is the list of the increases for each group, and even one group had different COLAs for different employees. as part of this, the city council needs to adopt the salary schedule, salary resolution, which establishes the legal current salary schedule for each permanent position. I don't know if you recall, city council also approves the part-time seasonals, but that is not included in this. And so, see, the recommended action is to approve the resolution authorizing the fiscal year 22-23 annual salary adjustment consistent with existing employee labor agreements. And with that, I'm here to answer any questions.
Seeing no questions, I'll just ask if, Larry, are there any emails from members of the public? If members of the public would like to send an email, you can send it to public comment at ci.capitola.ca.us.
Mayor Story, I do not see any emails on this item.
Okay, I'll bring it back for council action. Is there a motion?
Yes, I can make a motion to approve the resolution authorizing the fiscal year 22-23 annual salary adjustment consistent with existing employee labor agreements.
I'll second.
Okay, there was a motion by Vice Mayor Kaiser, seconded by Councilmember Brown. Can we have a roll call vote, please?
Councilmember Bertrand.
I approve.
Councilmember Brooks.
Aye.
Councilmember Brown.
Aye.
Vice Mayor Kaiser.
Aye.
Mayor Story.
Aye. And that motion passes unanimously, and which brings us to item 9, which is adjournment for the evening. Thank you, everyone, for your attention and your work this evening with the city's business. I will adjourn this meeting to our next scheduled meeting, which will not be until July the 28th, 2022 at 7 p.m. We are on our summer break, so there won't be an early July meeting. Everybody have a great summer break. Until then, but be sure to come back safe and sound on July the 28th.